Good morning. This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net. And today I have on an artist, musician, traveler, it appears. She just traveled cross country. Her name is Mary, and do we pronounce it Alouette?
Yes, Mary Alouette.
I got it right. So, Mary and I were supposed to talk earlier this week, but as we all know, life happens, and my life hit a brick wall. And so we had to reschedule for today. But today's a special day because you're releasing something new.
Yes, today I'm releasing a new album, a Cuban jazz album called Cuba Diaries that I wrote and recorded in Cuba.
So, let's talk about how you actually got into music. When did you realize that this was what you wanted to do?
Yes, I got into music at a young age, 7 years old. I remember going to see my older sister perform in a children's theater group, and you had to be 7 years old to be on stage. And I sat in the audience going, I can't wait till I'm seven. Um, but yeah, that was called Drama Learning Center, and that was in Maryland where I grew up. But I've been doing it ever since. Musical theater, then I was an opera singer internationally, mainly in Montreal, Canada, where I went to the Schulich School of Music at McGill University, and then in Austria, in Italy, and then I became a gypsy jazz singer in New York City. That was my career. And now I do electronic and pop music, singing, songwriting, production. So this has been my life.
So, one of the things that I hear you saying is something that we talk about a lot at New Cleveland Radio and we really stress. And it's never too late to do what you love to do. Even though you started at an early age of 7, you keep evolving and doing all these different things. Okay. Where a lot of people think, you know what? If I'm going to be a performer, I'm going to perform in a certain way all the time and just hope that people will continue to like that performance. But instead, you chose to evolve. So, was that really by choice or was that by need?
It was by both. And I face those fears all the time. Am I too old to do this or that? But my biggest fear is living a life of regret. And it's better to do something now than to never do it. I'm always evolving. And for me, a lot of my evolution had come from people pleasing. I thought I had to be a certain way, do certain things to please people. But throughout my inner growth, I've had more confidence to go after what I truly want. Oftentimes, I find, oh, if I don't have this as my main life dream, I can do that no problem. But if it's what I really want to do, then I'm scared. But now I do it anyway.
Well, sometimes fear is a great motivator. Um, and they say that most performers before they step on stage, they're scared. Even though they could do it day after day, week after week. I just read an article about Frank Sinatra, and Frank Sinatra was fearful every time he went on stage. And I thought, here's a man who just like totally evolved. Everyone loved him. Women fell at his feet when he was young. Um, why was he scared? But I think it's more about you wanting to please yourself, and we are our worst critics.
Yeah, please yourself, or that, yes, I agree. And depending on what situation you grow up in, um, I grew up in a family where I felt I had to please people in order to be accepted or loved. And so it wasn't even myself. I wasn't even looking at myself. I didn't really have a self. I mean, I did, but not the way that I do now. And in regards to that stepping on stage, I know Beyonce has her alter ego, Sasha Fierce, that she steps into. I remember singing the national anthem for the Baltimore Orioles solo a cappella. I did that twice for them, twice for Washington Nationals baseball team, Major League, and over or 2 dozen times for DC United Soccer. But for the big baseball teams, there were 35,000 people in the stands. And I was walking out to the pitcher's mound, and there's Cal Ripken, big sea of people, and I was so nervous. And I just, made sure, do I have my note? Do I have my note? But once you just get started, you get into this zone and it becomes very zen and it's almost like tunnel vision and everything washes away around you. And I do think it's easier to do that in front of people that you don't know versus people that you do.
Oh, I understand that one very well. It's funny because my son, um, has been a vocalist and that he's not pursuing that as his profession now, but, he too has sung in front of the Cleveland Indians. He's done the national anthem, and I've seen him before he goes out there, and he's pacing back and forth, and he's talking to himself, and I've learned, leave him alone, because you don't wanna interrupt him, but as soon as he stepped out on the pitcher's mound and the first note comes out of his mouth, it's like, "Look at him." And then even afterwards, he's just very relaxed. It's like, "Oh, yeah, that was no big deal." And it's like, "Yeah, but for the hour that I saw you pacing on the field, that was a big deal." But he said that's what motivated him. And I've heard other performers say the same thing. It's that adrenaline that you're feeling up until the very moment that first note comes out.
Definitely. And you're talking about Alex with the
Yeah.
Impossible Dream.
Oh my gosh, you've heard that. I love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yes, that's a story for another day. So, tell me what made you decide to move cross country during the pandemic, during this year of horrific changes?
Yeah, it has always been my childhood dream to move to Los Angeles. I'm from Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. I've lived abroad in Europe, France, Austria, Italy. I went to university in Montreal, Canada at McGill, and I've also lived in Cuba for a bit, hence the Cuban jazz album that's released today. But mostly I lived in New York City for 10 years that I just moved from there. The pandemic, as challenging and tragic and difficult as it has been, I found a blessing in it. Um, for me, it was an opportunity to really grow my online coaching business for artists, for female musicians called Set Your Life to Music. And now that I'm completely location independent, I had the freedom to move here. I don't have any responsibilities to anybody except for myself. I don't have kids right now. So I wanted to, really pursue this dream. And I moved on January 1st. I can always remember. And it just came out of a decision because I was undergoing a massive interchange this past year, looking at who am I? I mean, I always come back to this question, but it's always evolving through spiritual work. And the move across the country was actually fairly simple. It wasn't anything more difficult than usual. I just wore a mask, wore a face shield, wore gloves, hand sanitizer, ultra cautious, isolation, but moving across here. And then I went out and bought a convertible.
It must be wonderful being in California this time of year while the rest of us are cold and, uh, waiting for the snow to hit today. Um,
I understand, having lived in Quebec for 6 years and living on the East Coast pretty much my whole life. Like, I know those at least in the cities, the concrete jungle and the cold. So now I'm soaking up the parks and the palm trees under the sun in January.
And that's absolutely wonderful. And for those people who are listening, the interesting part is that one of the things that I think you found due to this pandemic was that you can still live your life, gotta be more cautious, gotta be careful, um, but we can reinvent things, as you have with your coaching business.
Yeah, so much reinvention. I love reinvention. I love fresh beginnings. It's exciting and it's adventurous. Yes.
So, tell me a little bit about the coaching business before we talk again about the album.
Yeah, the coaching business is called Set Your Life to Music. I help female singers, songwriters, and music producers in electronic and pop music find their true voice, write songs that they love that really fit their voice like a glove, record their original music, release their original music on Spotify and all of those digital platforms and perform it confidently and win awards. And yeah, it's a pleasure. And we work online. And not only is it just singing and songwriting and producing your music, because you can get that in so many places online. It's also addressing who do you need to be to do these things and to live out your dream as an artist and evolve to that next level. For me, that's what it's been. I created this program because it's what I was looking for and I couldn't find it. I remember being in New York City. I was a jazz singer by my full-time job, and I love the music. I love the community with the gypsy jazz music, but it wasn't my full-on total dream because I love creating and always wanted to create more electronic music. Even when I was an opera singer at McGill, I remember sitting in the cafeteria at my music conservatory wanting to do electronic dance music in the clubs and sing, but I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't have a role model showing me how. There were women doing it, of course, but I didn't I felt a block, and it was my own inner block that blocked me from going there.
Sure.
And so I remember being at a music studio in New York and looking at this one artist named Emily King. She's a great artist. She was performing at South by Southwest. And I thought, how is she doing it? What is she doing behind the scenes to get her music out there and to, sing music that's true to her? And I really wanted a mentor to help guide me on the back end. I was doing music professionally full time and I was releasing award-winning albums, but it wasn't in the style that I wanted to. I was doing some electronic stuff with that jazz,
Sure.
and I was performing, headlining at the Rainbow Room, headlining at the Millennium Stage at the Kennedy Center. Nothing like that wasn't small, and I'm so proud of that. But I wasn't fully stepping into what I wanted to be. I had a lot of codependency issues, and I always felt like I was playing small on the sidelines, admiring other people and feeling like I couldn't do that. Um, and so what I ended up doing is I I had this one moment where I went to see a show at Jazz at Lincoln Center. I had been part of this artist residency program at Strathmore in Maryland, which was probably one of the best things that happened to me as an artist. This was similar to Set Your Life to Music in the way that it was artist mentorship, the tools to become a professional artist behind the scenes, as well as on the job training, and you're paid for it. And it's audition based, and it's called Strathmore Artist in Residence. So that's a tight knit family of musicians every year. We're all close. It's such a blessing. One of my Strathmore family, the heirs, artist in residence, was performing at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And he was up there performing, and I went with the education director, Betty Scott, to go see him perform. And and he was great, Mark Meadows. He was great. And then he had this one singer up with him on stage. She was good, and I thought, I can do that. Why am I sitting here in the audience and not getting a gig at Jazz at Lincoln Center? My band, my band, where I was the band leader and was scouted to perform at the Rainbow Room at the top of 30 Rock. So it's not in the world class musicians.
Oh,
why why am I not up there? And I even knew the programming director at Jazz at Lincoln Center because she had been the programming director at Strathmore and then moved to Jazz at Lincoln Center. So I had the connections. Um, and I talked to my dear friend Betty Scott, who was sitting across from me at the table, and she said, she knew that I had been on the fence about, oh, electronic music or gypsy jazz, or really, what do I want to do? She said, I don't know, like, yeah, you can, but I don't know if it's for you right now. And then that really clicked something in me. I said, I'm tired. I cannot go in circles anymore about what am I doing? What direction am I going? And I was also having this starving artist mentality at the time, thinking I needed to do that to have integrity as an artist, which is not true. So that was the spur. And that's when I decided that I wanted this artist development for myself. And then if I am doing it for myself, surely there are other women who want this as well. So that spurred this whole trip to Cuba and creating this business. But the work that I do with these female artists is based around practical music lessons and singing and songwriting and music production. And there's a lot of looking at our thought processes, how you could have any circumstance, and how you think about that circumstance changes how, determines what you feel, and what you feel determines what actions you take, and those actions beget your results, and everything stems from a thought. So we're looking at what are your thoughts, and then how you can choose those thoughts, looking into spirituality, and knowing that you are enough, uh, as cliche as that is, but it just coming to this inner spaciousness of wholeness, oneness, um, more than just this immediate physical reality. And coming to those self-love pieces, um, and having grown up in a dysfunctional family, I had a lot of issues around this, and I'm always constantly working through this. So that's a big part of it for me. But we also work on finances. As an artist, you have a non-predictable income or
yeah.
an unpredictable income. How are you going to forecast what your expenses are going to be? How do I move across the country in a pandemic and buy a convertible? Well, as an artist, where I work entirely for myself, where I had been a starving artist, uh, but not anymore. And it's tools for organizing your money, organizing your time, finding ways to connect to your audience, business tools for developing your brand as an artist, your vision, and getting out of your own way.
I love this because so many people, whether they're performers or have a different occupation, um, we're so afraid to ask and look for mentorship. We're afraid to ask for help. Um, we think we're the only ones who are struggling. And the reality of it is, once you start having these conversations, you realize, hey, there is somebody out there who's willing to walk me through the process. And I may not follow all their footsteps, but they can start to guide me and I can see the path that I need to take. Um, and I see musicians particularly tend to have this huge heart and they help each other out. Now, I know there are some out there that don't. It's all for them. But for the majority of you, you you support each other. And that's got to be difficult in a society where everybody is striving to be heard, to be seen. Um, and yet you're opening the door for somebody else, even though it may not include you right now. Is it, I mean, am I getting all that right?
Somewhat, but it does include me too.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
other thing, that it's a blessing. I learn from my students as much as they learn from me. Um, and I'm releasing a new album today and a new single last week and a new single next month. So it's not like it's at my sacrifice. I mean, I built Set Your Life to Music. My ultimate dream is to do my own original music and tour around the world. And I love helping others. And it started as a vehicle to support, to earn a living.
Sure.
It wasn't like my number one dream. Uh, my dream is for my music, but that also, but I am so passionate about helping other female artists. And also they tell me that that we connect because they want to be with someone who's connected to the industry, who is doing it herself, not just someone who's teaching from the sidelines, but isn't actually doing it.
So tell us a little bit about today's release. What can we expect out of it and how can we find it?
Yes, Cuba Diaries. It is a Cuban jazz album, and you can find it at fanlink.to/Cuba Diaries. So it's fanlink.to/Cuba Diaries. And on that page, you have links to many platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc. You can also go to my website for music coaching at setyourlifetomusic.com. Again, that's setyourlifetomusic.com. And my artist website at alarke.com, alarke.com. This album, I got to tell you the story of this
Oh,
album.
absolutely.
So that one time when I was at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and and then I had that moment, I it lit a fire under me, and I turned and I decided to go into more of a disciplined existence, instead of wanting to exist in this bohemian, dreamy artist world that was completely detached from business and the rest of the world. I mean, I was doing that other things, but more reluctantly. Um, and so then I decided I wanted to get a residency at an international program. And I had won artist residencies in the past, like with Strathmore, but I got a mentor through SCORE, SCORE, score.org. It's a national um, free mentorship program for within the U.S. Small Business Administration. And so I decided I needed a mentor, someone to help guide and help me put the pieces together. I applied to some high and international residencies, and I worked extremely hard. I mean, I'd done rigorous academics my whole life, so I'm not a stranger to that, but that's what I was doing. But I got rejected from all of the international residencies, and I was disappointed. And they took about 4% of the applicants, and the applicants that they took were professors at Yale, and they were at different places than I was in my career at the time. They were more established, so I get it. But I was, tired of playing on the sidelines, and I said I'm not going to let this come in the way of my dreams. And I had also applied for a local grant with the Brooklyn Arts Council that I did get, for teaching music to senior citizens. And I took that money that I got from that grant and I invested in my own life and business coach. And it wasn't related to music, but it was with Divine Living with Gina DeVee. And I've invested in mentorship ever since. But with that, it completely transformed the way I learned to transform the way that I perceive the world around me, perceive what I thought about money, perceive what I thought about business. And um, then I also decided, you know what? I'm going to create my own artist residency. And Cuba had always been on the back of my mind. And this was at the end of Obama's presidency when you could travel to Cuba. And I thought of the idea, I slept on it for a night, and then I bought my ticket. And I said, I'm going to go for a month. And um, I booked an Airbnb and I didn't have the money. I knew I needed $3,000 cash. I calculated with my business mentorship tools, um, and cash because as a US citizen, you can't withdraw cash in Cuba. And uh, at the time, I was really struggling as an artist because I had a lot of blocks around money. So I saved $1,000. And then about 2 weeks before I was going to go, I was like, how the hell am I going to pull this off? And then I was just having a conversation with a friend, and out of nowhere, she offered to loan me $2,000 with the contingency that I would just pay her back in four sums of $500 every month when I got back. And I I took her offer, and it was so generous. And I went and I made it happen. And then when I was in Cuba, I took daily piano and percussion lessons. I lived with a Cuban family in Centro in Havana, which is where a lot of the locals live in Havana. And I traveled to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Vinales, and I rode horses down into the tobacco valleys and smoked a cigar and went to a white sand beach for the first time in my life. And I I was writing songs. I had just broken up with a boyfriend, and I was, reflecting on that sadness, but looking at the beauty in it as well. And I wrote a song there, and I was inspired by poetry that I would sing in the houses. And I took these daily piano lessons with these right hand playing one rhythm and the left hand playing the other, and I was dreaming this rhythm. And then I woke up and I said, I gotta record this. I want to take something tangible back with me so I know that this wild dream that I'm going after isn't just a blur in a memory, that it's real. And um so I took some of the money that I had in cash, and I ended up hiring a six-piece Cuban jazz band from the music school that I was studying, and their connections. And we recorded this in the studio of famed Latin Grammy Award-winning singer Pablo Milane, recorded it there. And not only that, but some friends of mine from New York City also happened to be going down to Cuba to film a documentary on hip hop and intercultural exchange with Cuban hip hop artists and American hip hop artists. And they invited me to collaborate on some of the tracks. So I wrote some hooks with them and recorded them and guested in their film and performed with them at Fabrica de Arte, Havana's leading premier venue. And it was just this wild dream. And I did this kind of as a prototype that, I'm just going to throw a curveball, and can I really do this? And I wanted to use it as an example. Can I really go after something in my life? But as I said earlier today, that if I didn't feel this like heart connection where it's my biggest dream, yeah, I can do that. Unless if it's my biggest dream, then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fail. I don't want to do it. So I took this as a little bite-sized morsel of that. Can I go after it? And so now, when I go after my projects now with my own releases, or helping other artists, or moving across the country, or buying a convertible, or making these big transformations in my life, think, how did I feel when I went to Cuba? I was open, I was enthusiastic, I was happy, and I went more after the feeling than a particular result. And it's like God handed me everything on a silver platter, and I just said yes. So that album is out today.
I love it. And so we can go out to Spotify or any of those mainstreams, or go to your website and link to it as well.
Yeah, it's under the artist name Mary Alouette. So that is MaryAlouette, Mary Alouette, Cuba Diaries.
I love it. Well, I'm excited about all this. Um, so many things that you said today mesh with, our mission here at New Cleveland Radio. It's about following your dream, following your passion. Um, we may stumble and fall. Nothing has to be absolutely perfect.
We will stumble and fall,
Yeah,
and that's the indicator that you're doing the right thing.
absolutely. The other thing you talked about was um, coaching and mentorship, and you found a business coach. We have a life coach who does a show with us twice a month. And I will tell you, I have learned so much about myself, okay, through the discussions that we have, things that I never would have tried before. Um, I'm open to because when you're open, when you are really here and listening to what is happening around you, like you were in Cuba, you heard the sounds, you heard the people, you felt it. And that's what helped create what we're going to be able to hear on your album. I'm
Yes.
excited. Very good. Well, again, welcome to New Cleveland Radio. We hope to talk to you again in the near future. And we will make sure that your website is attached to the description of today's show so that everybody can follow you and listen to your music. And if they want coaching, contact you about that as well.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Karen. I know that you are on that same mental tip with the impossible dream,
Yes.
and it has been such a pleasure talking with you. And to all of your listeners, hi, and thank you for listening. And again, I know we'll have it in the show notes, but you can go and find the music at fanlink.to/Cuba Diaries. And you can learn more about finding your electric voice and taking your singing and songwriting from the shower to the stage at setyourlifetomusic.com. I offer a lot of free resources in terms of singing exercises, songwriting, workshops, free. So come check it out. I'm so fortunate to be able to work together with you.
Absolutely. Well, have a great day. Stay healthy. Wear that mask, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you too. Bye.